know. This one's tough because of affordability. Again, my biggest argument is the affordability, the cost it is to own a home. I think what we're seeing right now is, we have the seasonality of January comes and buyers are getting back in the market. But what I've also noticed is, which I think is very important that we talk about, is there. So we showed a house last Friday. There was tons of activity, lines out the door, but there's no offers. Today, there's still no offers on that house. And so, although there's a lot more super boxes getting hit, there's a lot more people looking at houses. I think they get stopped when it comes to, oh man, I got to make that kind of payment on that house. Like I thought it was going to be a lot cheaper. So, so I think 20% drop would be nice. And is it impossible? I don't think it's impossible. I don't think a 20% drop is impossible if everything stays right. If the Fed continues to do their quarter basis point hikes, the bond market responds accordingly, and they increase, and the bond market goes up. I think that's going to be very easy to obtain if those things continue to happen. I think if all of a sudden we start pumping money in and the Fed cuts the interest rates, and then the bond market responds accordingly, then I think we may not see 20%, but I still think we have declines to come.
I think we will.
You think we're gonna hit? Trust me, hit 20.
People called us crazy back when we were making our videos.
I know we did call it 30%, and we got.
I remember that. That.
They called us crazy, and everybody said, because we do this for a living. We are agents, so this is how we make our income. But we call it. So the reason I say yes is because I'm not necessarily, if he's talking about sales price, median price, inventory. He says 20% drop this year, which I'm guessing in price. Mm-hmm. But I think the unknowns is social, economic, and political right now. So I think that controls absolutely everything. What's going to happen if inflation continues to go up, cost of living goes up, income doesn't come up, prices will come down. That's what's going to happen. And that's kind of what we bring up with an increase of foreclosure rate, because people are not going to be able to afford their homes if we keep losing these jobs and the economy is not thriving like everybody thinks it is.
Well, so I got one more thing to say. So right now, the high end market has dropped some, but I think it has a lot more to drop. And once that high end market drops, which we're going to do a video on that next Tuesday, so make sure you watch out for that. But once that high end market starts dropping even lower, then that's going to push these other homes that are sitting right at 450, 500, 400 to start going down more, because if they're looking at like, okay, this is a used house versus a really nice house, and I'm only going to spend $50,000 more, they're going to go with the really nice house. And so I think we have to wait for the upper market. Now we've seen some homes that have dropped 800,000, 400,000 in the higher end homes. But I think once those continue to drop, then that's going to push the rest of the market down. But we got to wait for that upper.
Definitely.
Tanya, go ahead. You respond to that.
Yeah, just to jump in there, I think there's a lot of assumptions, right? So that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're making assumptions will happen, right? So
hold on, Tanya. When we hope you had your crystal ball in front of you.
I know.
Mine broke, and I was hoping
I wish I did too. And I think that's one of the things that I want to remind people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're totally here. We're in. We're paying attention to what's going on. It's our job, right? Like what you said. We're realtors. If we're not paying attention to the market, what are we doing? What I'll say is the unemployment is going to have to shoot up substantially for us to be able to, for foreclosures to start hitting the market. And frankly, the way things happened in 2008 to 2010, a lot of banks, they just deal with things differently now. They give you an opportunity to modify. I mean, one of the things that I do in working with the investors is I'll comb through foreclosures. So the foreclosure lists now, compared to what they were even pre-pandemic, are tiny, right? And part of that is because they introduced different types of legislation. It was zero for a long time. I'm sure you guys know that that's the case as well. And so, I saw people who were in and out of foreclosure for 11 years, and they were still getting their loan modification over and over and over again. Excuse me. It's incredibly expensive for banks to foreclose. They're not in the business of selling homes. They're not in the business of kicking people out. They're in the business of making money off of the loans that they get. So they want to keep that going, right? So, frankly, I think it's pretty difficult for someone to go into foreclosure these days and actually go all the way through, sold, et cetera. Right now, and I just looked this up to make sure I've got current numbers. So from a national perspective, we're at 3.4% of the unemployment rate. In Idaho, we're at 2.9%. Right. So during the Great Recession, we were, I think, 10, 11, 12%. So I think with that lens, when we're talking about, okay, what's unemployment? what is it going to take to really bring house values down? It's going to take a flood of homes on the market, because there's that sweet spot, right? There's always sort of that apex somewhere where prices are low enough that people are going to start buying, even if rates are high enough. And I think, rates typically will respond to inflation, right? Because if you've got inflation, it's riskier for investors to give out loans. Excuse me. So with that, I think once we hit May, because that's when we saw, that huge increase, we're going to have a year-over-year net loss in inflation, not net increase. So if that happens, that's going to be great for rates. And if that's great for rates, and I'm not talking like 3.5%, I'm talking about dropping to like, 5, mid fives. People are going to go, okay, yeah, no, I'm interested in buying. And, I think there's this shock that's happened, because when you come off of the back of historically low interest rate at 2.75%, 2.5%, nobody wants to buy at even 4%, right? But then when you swing all the way up and you're at 6.5 to 7%, even more. So I think that shock of coming off of that, plus what I think is likely to be some drops in 30-year mortgage interest rates, I think we're gonna see prices stabilized because of that, in that late spring, early summer.
Yeah. So, I a little bit disagree with you on this. And the only reason why is because our inflation, the CPI report that just came out, it dropped, but it didn't drop as high, or as low as they were hoping, which in return created the bond market to go up, because they thought it was going to drop a lot more. Excuse me. And so I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see the 5.5, 5, because the very first part of the inflation drop, that's we went from a high to now 6, but I think that 6 and 5 we're going to be kind of sticky. It's going to be kind of stuck there. That's just my opinion. Obviously, we won't know until it comes.
Right.
But I think the other thing to consider when we're talking about foreclosures and stuff, because everybody talks about the lending and how the lending center, that is true. But here in Idaho, and which has been a great program, so I'm not knocking this program.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah. People could buy a house with 99.5% financing. People could buy it with 100% financing in an RD loan. And so you have people that are 100% leverage, and if they lose their job, if they come into hardship, then they don't have, like, with the equity being wiped out, and that's one thing that we've been just preaching, is the equity that's been wiped out over the last year is substantial. And so those people who bought 99.5% financing, or refinanced up, as high as they could, or pulled out a HELOC and used all that. So these are the people that I think are at risk of getting a foreclose on it. These ones that are highly leveraged, because we don't talk about it. But then on top of it, there's loan products out there right now, which some people have used, some people I know have used them. I'm not saying that they're good or bad. I'm just saying that, there's risk behind it. It's no income. It's a no income loan, where as long as the property cash flows, you can get the loan to buy it. And so the problem is, we have seen rents come down. We've seen vacancies in rents and go up. And so with all of that, that's just like to me, it's a pot getting ready to just boil over. Now, obviously, if we see stimulus, if we see, rate cuts, all that kind of stuff, then I think, all that stuff is going to go away. But there's a lot of that going on.
Right. Well, I think you make a really valid point. Oh, sorry, Jonathan. I just
want to speak on that. You're talking about employment. I agree with you right there. I know that employment's record low, but my fear is, like we were talking about, is cost of living, inflation, and people not having that income to support what they just purchased. And when it catches up with them, what happens with the cost of things, or if something happens, it's insane. I mean, the amount of people I talk to are on the borderline of bankruptcy, or have insane amount of credit card debt, or took all these loans out during the pandemic, have all this debt, and they have this expensive house. There's got to be a breaking point, and that's my concern. I know we're kind of getting off subject of the 20% drop, but that's my concern.
Right.
Yeah, that's my concern, because I talk to a lot of people, especially on YouTube, all over the place. I ask opinions, try to be non-biased. I mean, talking, you have lower income, higher income purchasing, whatever's going on, but it seems like it's out now that it's a record credit card debt, record consumer debt, record federal debt. I just, there's got to be a breaking point somewhere. And I think a lot of people are experiencing, when you're paying $9 for eggs and, $4 a gallon, it's going to catch up.
Yeah.
I mean, debt can only go so far.
Yeah.
But if you're the government, you can just print it. But with us normal people, so it's going to be
that you just swipe.
Just swipe.
But all right, let's grab another question. So if you really like this clip and want to watch the full podcast, make sure you click here, or the link will be in the description below. And if you haven't, make sure you subscribe.